Broken down into 8 different chapters. The first one is just basically an introduction and context building for the plan itself. And then chapter 2, it's really all about your population. It's about who's out there in the city and what are the demographics and what are local trends, information telling us about your population. Then we turn into your actual park system, which is chapter 3. That's talking about your supply, your staffing, your progression of your organization. And then 4 moves into community engagement. That's the chapter that we utilize stakeholder interviews and focus groups, many of which that you all were a part of. And we also implemented a statistically valid survey, which we'll talk about a little bit more, and then an online survey. Then we also had virtual poll available over the course of the planning process. Chapter 5 is a culmination of all those previous chapters, and it's basically the needs assessment. It's, hey, based on all this information that we gathered and analyzed, these were the needs that are starting to show themselves for Parks and Recreation Services in Clemson. And then 6 is kind of the built environment, so to speak, aspect of all those needs. So we're presenting a capital improvement plan, and this plan sets up a framework for that. And then 7 is how you implement all the action strategies in one place that are provided in this plan document. And then the last chapter is really just the appendix, which is the full statistically valid survey report, which I'm sure you probably browsed through. That's pretty long. And then also the online survey results, which is the survey that anybody could self-select to participate in. Okay. And then you also see a couple of placeholders here for endorsement letters and or approval letters from both yourself and council. So the first chapter, just introduction. It's a short little chapter here, but just talking a little bit about the area, what the master plan is, and something of note here, and I put this in the bold, is this plan is a living document, and it's intended to be so. So it reflects the participants at the time, but it also should change as people and issues change. So a lot of times communities will do plan updates at least every 5 years. Sometimes, communities let plans go for 10, 15, 20 years, but really needs change and society changes and resources change every couple of years. And so really it's nice to do some check-ins on the plan every couple of years, every 5 years over the lifespan of the actual document itself. Chapter 2, we utilized Esri, which is a mapping and spatial analytics software tool that's able to look at your particular city boundaries and pull out a lot of meaningful information. So this chapter is all about population, statistics and growth, age segmentation, so how your community is changing or not in terms of age segmentation, but that also has a little bit of the college influence, I would say, when it comes to age segmentation too, just because there are college folks that live off of campus and in the city, and so I'm sure that is captured in some of the actual demographics of your community, race and ethnicity, and how in the person over those census years, and an increase in ethnicity, household income statistics. We go a lot about some of the finances, but one thing I want to bring your attention to here is section 2.1.6, poverty, because it's a statistic that is typically looked at, in terms of the poverty level. But for you in particular, we actually went in and looked at the United Way. United Way actually looks at an ALICE population, which is the asset limited income constrained but employed population. So in other words, if I put this up here in the narrative, so like for for Pickens County, 19% of the households are in poverty, but 31% are considered Alice households. So it gives a little bit of a nod to the poverty level is not necessarily an end-all, be-all when it comes to context around poverty. And so what this actually is presenting is it's showing the Census County Division, and Clemson is number 2 here, and Central is number 1. And it basically says a little bit more than half the population is actually considered below this Alice threshold. So it gives a little bit more context around the need for access to public services, to recreation, to quality of life amenities, and things of that nature. So it's another way of looking at your community. And so you'll see that information in the plan. You'll see educational attainment, disability status, and it makes sense as age goes up, the percentage of people that report having various disability statuses. And again, this is not just physical, this is also sensory, auditory, and all the other disabilities that are reported by the census, and then also employment statistics. But I want to move down here to, once you get past the actual just demographics, you'll also see a lot of information about potential. And so a lot of local trends can be pulled that is looking at market research and looking at consumer surveys. And we pull numbers, scores for 4 different categories: exercise, personal health activities, sport activities, outdoor activities, and enrichment activities. Now, it's not to say that these are all the activities that can be tracked. It is just that these are the ones that are reported based on a local consumerism standpoint. So when you're looking for activities that maybe don't show up in these charts, it's because they're not tracked at the uber local level. And the way to interpret these charts is if 100 is the national average for proclivity or affinity for consuming a particular recreation behavior, if a score of 121 for yoga is the Clemson residents, that's saying that Clemson residents are 21% more likely to participate in yoga than the national average. And vice versa, if Zumba is 64, it's basically saying Clemson residents are 36% less likely than the national average to participate in these activities. So what you see is you see a lot of aptitude for exercise, personal health activities. You see a lot for sports. And one thing to mention here, look at national average, but it doesn't mean that there aren't people that play soccer in the local market. It's basically saying it might be a little bit more of a niche, or it might be more of a targeted audience. It's not saying that, soccer is 11% less likely than national average, move it, disband soccer. That's not the point. It's basically saying take it in a vacuum. These are numbers that help us derive and look to how is this manifesting in reality, or participation numbers and things like that. And outdoor activities, you see a slew of outdoor activities as well: fishing, archery, hiking, backpacking, all that fun stuff. And then enrichment activities is basically a laundry list of different activities that, not saying they're parks and recreation related, but it's basically gives you an idea that Clemson residents exhibit large interest in games and arts and culture activities, music, art, visual performance. It's a little bit more of a different summary of activities to give you a little bit more direction of the community at large. And then we also did the same thing for spending potential. So this is just another way of looking at market scores. And again, the 100 national average is the same number that applies. So basically what it's saying is, if tickets to parks and museums is 73, that means the Clemson resident is 27% less likely than national average to be spending money on parks and museums, tickets to these ticketed events, going to the theater, opera, admission to sporting events, fees for recreation lessons. Again, it's giving us an indication of the demographic that's out there in the community. And then lastly here, what I'll say about the demographics is we also looked at tapestry. Tapestry is another way of looking at how your demographic is sliced and diced. And it's basically kind of, I'll say the word stereotype. It's Esri uses characteristics across the country, and they created 67 unique demographic segments around the country. And basically, your top five all fit into 100% of your population, and it equates to these words such as college towns and styles, dorms and diplomas, yada yada. The takeaway here is each one of these market profiles have kind of unique little descriptions about them. So, for an example, if 33.5% of your population is considered a college town kind of atmosphere, it basically means that this group across the country is bike and pedestrian friendly. They like backpacking, Pilates, frisbee. They like to go out to the movies, out for drinks. It just gives a little bit of insight into the population at a macro level. That you'll see that in the plan, and then it just summarizes that chapter with some of the implications that if you don't want to go through all the other data charts, just read 2.5, and that gives you the gist of the summation here about continuing to enhance connectivity, addressing inequity, outdoor recreation, sports and athletics, willingness to pay, have a little bit of discussion about those items. Chapter 3 is now moving towards into your actual system. So this one is showing your actual park system, where it is, how the parks are labeled into different classifications, such as pocket park, neighborhood park, community parks, regional parks, green spaces, special use. You can see the distribution around your community. And of note, 16 is actually the Central Clemson Recreation Center. But I wanted to keep it all in the same map, so I put it there in the corner, up there on the road. So just so you know, I realize it should be further up there. I wanted to keep it all in the same place. And this is where we start telling the story of your system. So what is it that it contains, and how does that relate to others, and how does that relate to even yourselves? And so 3.1, you'll start seeing the system progression. So pre-1990, you had JC Park, you had Clemson Park, Ashley Deering Park, and you actually had Army Ball Field, which is no longer in existence. But in the 90s, you hired a second full-time staff, but then Mountain View, Earl Anderson, Dawson, Abernathy, the right-of-way, the Rotary Park, Shinklin, Sam's Green Space, all that was added, and then horticulture moved from Public Works to the Parks and Recreation Department. But then in the 2000s, Nettles Park and the expansion, Gateway Park, Abernathy Park, and then Toddy's Place. And then fast forward a little bit more, 12 Mile, Berkeley Orchard, and yes, the Urban and Park Land Management Department was created, but those are also roles that are focusing on other stuff, not just the parks of the community. So why we put this together was kind of getting that understanding of the system has really expanded, but staffing to a much smaller degree has really expanded that much to measure it with the experiences and the infrastructure that has been put in over the years. And so that then leads into a supply analysis, which basically is a whole bunch of benchmarking. So the way that you interpret these charts is basically there's metrics on the left-hand side that the National Recreation and Park Association tracks. And Clemson, or the Parks Department, their numbers will be right here in this column. And then there's different crosstabs basically that I use to look at the median numbers based on characteristics of the system. So this first one is all cities that report data. It's their median number. Less than all cities that serve less than 20,000 residents. This is their median number. Those cities that have a population density of 1,500 to 2,500 per square mile, this is their median number. And those systems that maintain 10 to 19 parks, this is their median number. And why I did that is it's oftentimes not apples to apples just to look at the city of Clemson inventory stat versus just the national average across the country, because there's big park systems, there's small park systems, there's urban systems, there's rural systems, it's everybody kind of combined. And so by doing it this way, it helps you kind of understand a little bit more about how you stack up and how you align or not align with agencies of similar characteristics. So a way of looking at this is, so Clemson has 13 and a half acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. All the cities across the country, the average is 11 and a half, so you're above that. But you're also above communities that are similar in size and population. You're slightly above population density statistics, and you're slightly above systems that just maintain a similar number of park sites. That's how you interpret these charts. And so we did that for parkland and trails. We did that for outdoor facilities and the prevalence of outdoor facilities. We did that for indoor facilities. And again, all these are ones that are tracked by the National Recreation Park Association. So you actually offer some things that are a little bit different. Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to switch started.
Quick pause.
Yeah, you're good.
Can you speak?
Okay,
Yep. We all good?
He's trying to change the mic.
Oh, no worries. Can you hear me okay?
Can't hear it. Hang on a second.
Test 1, 2. And then there's two charts in particular. One is the priority investment rating for facilities and amenities, and one is the priority investment rating for programs and services. And basically, we ask the question, do you have a need for a certain type of facility? Yes or no? And then how well is your need being met? 0%, 25% met, 50% met, all the way up to 100%. And then we ask the third question, what are the most important facilities or amenities to you and your household? And then ETC Institute, who implemented the survey, took all that data, put it together to basically create this chart that is unique to your community. So basically it's saying is paved connectivity trails for bikes and pedestrians is the highest priority asset that you can invest in, meaning the community wants to see more of it, or it's just highly, highly important to them to keep up the service that you're doing in these areas. So in other words, investing in these amenities and facilities, you'll get your biggest bang for your buck because you're touching the most people that have a need and or priority for these facilities. And so you see that for paved connectivity trails, natural areas and conservation areas, unpaved trails, neighborhood parks, paved walking trails within the parks, splash pads, open green space, large community parks, pickleball courts, and senior indoor and outdoor activity areas. And on the flip side, when you see things like low priority, like disc golf, non-motorized boat launches, motorized boat launches, diamond sports fields, esports, and gaming space, it's the same principle as what I mentioned earlier. It's not saying that these groups do not exist, but it might be a little bit more of a niche audience and targeted audience for those services. And so the community at large is not necessarily utilizing those services more so than the others. And you'll see the same thing for programs and services, same orientation. And here you'll see special events. And actually, with their math that they do, 200 is the highest score that you can have. So technically, between facilities and programs, special events was your community's highest need, highest priority with special events. So special events, adult fitness and wellness, nature programs, water-based recreation, programs for seniors, pickleball, adult organized athletic and leagues, all art, dance, performing arts, and dog park programs. But then STEM is actually right below there with science, technology, and nursing. And then we asked the online survey, which has a lot of the same questions as the survey, but we kept the data separate. So that way we're keeping track of the statistically valid survey results versus the anecdotal survey. And then we also conducted the public meeting that some of you actually attended virtually. And this section basically just presented the findings. We did real-time polling in that meeting about, I did a presentation and then asked them, did anything surprise you? Do you have any other input? That's when we started hearing stuff about aquatics or more trails and green space, or some of the poverty numbers were kind of not startling, but I didn't realize that was the case. Kind of in the community. And then we asked about different types of programs that they want to see running, events, things like that. Then ultimately, this leads into the next chapter, which is essentially the needs assessment. So if you don't read the first 4 chapters, the needs assessment is kind of the culmination of all those things. So basically, these are all the gaps that we identified along the way, and they're not necessarily presented in a priority order. They're just all the gaps in this chapter. So it was enhancing outdoor recreation and how we're going to utilize the outdoor resources, the natural resources of our system, identifying the Clemson University relationship and how we're dealing with public access to facilities and increasing population. Indoor recreation space is a premium, and we know there's a study going on right now about more indoor recreation space. Well, that's brought through to this. Design standards and branding, so looking at how our signage, how we incorporate crime prevention through environmental design or SEPTED standards, and how we celebrate, promote individual park history into the design. ADA improvements along with overall accessibility and access, we're talking about that. 12-mile activation, that's a newer property into the Parks and Recreation Department's purview. So how are we going to activate that moving forward? How are we going to invest internally as our staffing and our maintenance activities continue to increase for our system? Made sure to talk about that. Level of service as well, because one thing to note is level of service is also affected by guaranteed playability. So you have things in floodplains currently, but also as population increases, if you don't add other amenities, your level of service inherently decreases from a population-based standpoint, just from those benchmarking standpoint examples from the NRPA. Natural resources and urban forestry investments, more consistent capital funding, and again, that's why we're talking about a CIP program here. The ability to retain earned income to help yourselves as a department. Balancing sports and athletics and recreation versus kind of more of the competitive nature of sports. Investing in technology, both on the recreation side and the operations and maintenance side, work order management systems, software, and then recreation registration software. Different types of funding revenues to bring into the system, and then just making sure to carry through those identified system needs in terms of programs and facilities. And then all that drove chapter 6 and 7. So 6, we are presenting a capital improvement plan for consideration that basically a formalized capital improvement plan doesn't exist, and it exists in the state right now, of how the Parks and Recreation Department plans for improvement. And so what we did was we created a framework that broke it into 3 tiers: critical projects, sustainable projects, and visionary projects. And there's a description about what each of those are here on the page. And over the next several pages, it's basically we've identified 11 critical projects, and some of this is up for interpretation to expand on some of the projects to here too. But this is also a living framework document, and that's what it's intended to be. But basically, here's the park, here's the classification of the park, and actually nearing clean and repaint buildings at playground and evaluate the roofing. That might be $5,000. So it's now we're putting together a compilation of projects that we can plan for. That is about, we've identified about $1 million of critical projects that we want to do within the system. But we've also identified about $1.5 million of projects of sustainable projects, meaning maybe not necessarily critical, but for visitor use and the longevity of our site and what the purposes of the facility we're offering. We need to do these projects to make sure they continue to enhance the user experience. So, for example, JC Park, replace the playground safety surface. Right now, it may not be critical, but it's something that we need to do to continue on the use of that particular facility. And then lastly, we identified visionary projects that are basically like turn the current baseball field into a destination playground. That's something different. It's something new based on user feedback and non-user feedback. These are things that the community would like to see added to the system. So visionary projects are more, not currently within the system. And then lastly, the implementation plan is organized into strategies and tactics, but it's in 2 main categories: operations and experiences. And operations is broken down into governance and business. Governance related to staffing and management and partnering, staffing and management, personnel related matters, and business talking about revenue, funding, fundraising, organizational philosophies, partnering. And then experiences are broken down into facilities and programs. So trying to do this in a very easy and easily consumable function and format. Basically, operations, governance, and business governance, there's about 9 tactics or strategies, like grow and formalize the Friends of the Park through collaboration with Clemson University to offer enhanced community services. And then there is a box that you can use this as a status update. We've not started this, it's in progress, it's completed. And we've also started to introduce the priority tier, meaning we did a 3-tier priority. So it's either an A priority, a B priority, or a C priority. And we started outlining these. So for example, it's a high priority, A, to establish a staffing standard per acre of parkland maintained to measure it with industry best practices of 1 FTE per 20 acres. So I talked about that during this discussion here earlier about how the department is a little bit less on staffing. Well, here is now an actual goal and a performance measure that we can move towards to help ourselves for staffing purposes. And so governance is broken out this way. Business is broken out this way as well. Business has 11 strategies about adopting the 10-minute walk level of service goal. So I've said a lot about level of service in terms of population-based standards, but our industry is moving towards walkability and access within a 10-minute drive or walk. Walk actually is the goal, but so you'll see that verbiage is used in the action plan about actually doing an assessment of the 10-minute walk of your community and moving towards closing those gaps over the lifespan of this plan, adopting and implementing a formal 5-year capital improvement program that we're presenting here in this document. Pursue potential dedicated funding sources for capital improvements such as impact fees and hospitality tax. Again, these are discussed in this document. And then experiences broken down into facilities and programs. So this is where you'll see things like develop a 12-mile recreation area site master plan, including public and stakeholder engagement. This master plan that we're doing is a comprehensive system plan. Now, a lot of systems have site-specific master plans for major parks within their system. And 12-mile being a new asset into the Parks and Recreation Department is primed to have its own dedicated site plan, working with engineers, landscape architects, do a public engagement process, and specifically look at what does that park space look like moving forward. Considering adding self-rental watercraft kiosks to waterfront park sites, establishing site use distinction between 12-mile recreation area and Mountain View Park. They face each other, but one could be more motorized, one could be more non-motorized. These are the decision points that you all can make. Develop a system design pattern look and feel and materials and design standards. Conducting a system ADA self-audit and inventory, developing an urban forest master plan, developing a green infrastructure plan. These are things that are in the works that are waiting on some funding opportunities. Implementing the Nettles Park Site Master Plan, especially for those areas that are currently within the floodplain. And then programs, adding more inclusive recreation, continue to enhance social gathering opportunities. We saw that hugely with special events. Identify new programs and leverage the system's outdoor recreation opportunities, both land and water. Nature-based programming. Art activities. Again, these are things that are currently being studied by the feasibility study as well. But also, continuing to identify facilitative and/or collaborative programming opportunities that do not have major capital infrastructure implications. It's not also saying that you have to do everything yourselves, but how do we partner and how do we leverage other resources to do these things? So, and then it goes into the appendix there, so I'm going to stop there, and you'll see a very lengthy statistical valid survey report. I'm just going to come through that you see all the charts and the data and everything like crazy. And then it opens up into the general online survey that had 177 people. One point about this, too, is we did have people that did this not as residents, and so it is a self-selected survey, but we did capture that because then we can see where people are actually coming from as well. And so I think it's important to note that Clemson is not just an agency and a system that services Clemson residents. It also does have a little bit of a regional draw to it too, and I think that's important to know when we're doing these planning processes. So I know that's an awful lot of information. I know I've been directly just kind of one-way conversation with you all here, but I'm going to stop there. I'm going to catch my breath here, and then I'd be more than happy to have questions and or discussion or review anything else with you all for the rest of our meeting here.
So, Austin, can I ask you a question that we're getting a lot of feedback here, Austin, but
I'm hearing some reverberation.
yeah, one of the strange things in the report is that Clemson was so high on the Alice measure, like 55 or 66% of the residents, but it was also extraordinarily high on the number of people with college degrees and graduate degrees. In fact, it was like 53% in Alice and 56% with college degrees. How does that happen? What went into it? It's a baffling finding that we're relatively have a lot of people below Alice, over 50%. We also have more than 50% with at least a bachelor's degree. That didn't seem to make sense when I looked at it.
Yeah. So first off, I will say those are two different data sources. So one is the United Way study, and so one was conducted by United Way, and one was conducted by Esri. And so there might actually be some crossover on the data that they utilize there. However, I think, in my personal opinion, I think one is probably incorporating more of the university student population than not, which I think still adds to the conversation about serving the university and also understanding the number of people that are in your community that are probably lower income on the threshold because there is a college student present there too. So my personal take of it is there's probably some crossover there between the data sources because I've yet to work in a more of a college atmosphere community like Bloomington, Indiana, with IU there. There's always some challenge with identifying the population metrics and how they calculate the college base versus not. So I think it's probably a little bit of the college students thrown in there.
Thanks, Austin.
I was going to suggest that grad students who have bachelor's degrees but are making what 18,000 as an RA or a TA.
I'm sorry if that was a question, Drake. I hear a lot of reverberation.
It was just saying that college students who are in graduate school have undergraduate degrees, but their pay is just atrocious.
Yeah.
I have another question. So, several of your conclusions involve Clemson University partnerships, sharing student use or space. Were they receptive to that idea when you talked with them? Is that something that they were interested in doing, or something that you think we should do but really wasn't part of the conversation?
I apologize. I could not really hear that question. It just echoes every word. I'm sorry. Jay, is there a way to get the microphone?
Can you
hear me now? Yeah, I can hear you. That was great.
Okay, so
he was talking about the university sharing facilities.
Shared facilities?
Can you hear me now? Austin?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. He was asking,
about the university sharing facilities with us. Did they have any?
The microphone just kind of went away. Did somebody change something?
Is anybody online with him that can type the questions in the chat?
Can you speak in the microphone, Jay?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Seems like a no.
Can you hear from the council mics?
Sir?
And Austin, hear from the council mics?
Can you hear Austin?
I can't really make out what y'all are saying. I'm sorry.
Can you hear us now?
That's a little better.
I said something.
Yeah. My conversations, because I talked to, and I should have also mentioned that. So I used to be a grad student at Clemson. At the known Y beach at that point, and so had familiarity with some of that relationship. And actually, I talked to different people on campus, in campus recreation, and then also in their facilities planning division. And my understanding is, I think there is some receptivity about public use, but I think they're so much more focused on meeting the needs of their individual team sports, and not even necessarily some of the students at large. That I don't think they're really there yet, planning for facilities for public use. What I was told is they're actually undertaking a very large strategic master plan, that one of the components is going to be campus life and kind of the environment around activities and such. And I think that's going to be a very important mechanism excuse me, for the city to have a role in, either in an advisory role or ex officio way of what they're doing for planning, to be part of it. Because from my conversations with some of the staff, it seems to me that there are a lot of different almost kind of silos in facilities planning and public use for it. And then also, we had conversations with the community outreach folks, which is a newer office set up at Clemson University, and they seemed really receptive to wanting to work with the city about meeting public needs and what the city and what the community needs at large. And so you'll see in the action plan a call for the city to be represented at some of these planning meetings, because I think there's reception there for wanting to do it. I think there's other factors at play that leads me to say I think more and more intentional conversation and planning efforts need to be made jointly to really have that conversation together. I know that's a very long-winded answer, but I'm just trying to unpack that a little bit to that question, where I don't think they're not obstinate to it. I think there's other factors at play and other influences that affect the planning, and the fact that there's multiple departments and offices doing the work on campus, that I think it just needs to be more intentionality of the city and the Parks and Recreation Department getting involved and sitting on some of those planning steering committees if they have them, or at least broaching that topic about, hey, can we review some of these items and talk about things collaboratively? But I think the outreach and engagement office is a very good place to start because they seem to have the ear of a lot of people.
Okay. Any other questions? I can type them in here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. It's just that there's so much, it just echoes and I can't really hear, so I apologize.
Any other questions for Austin?
One thing I will say while you're thinking, there may be more questions, maybe not, is this is a directed time to kind of ask questions and all that, but you also have a couple weeks to review and provide more written feedback or written questions, if you will, too. That's no problem. We have a couple weeks that I can address things as well with you all. So yes, now is a directed time, but if you need a week or so to review things and think about things, let things stew a little bit more, you have time.
You go to council on July the 15th.
Yeah, it's that Monday, July 15th. That's correct.
That's when this goes to council.
Yes.
So Jay, do we have to approve this or do we?
Well, that's, he would like for this committee to endorse right on.
But if it's a work session, then I don't know if we can do that, right? I think we can.
This committee. Hang on a second.
Plus one, plus half, one.
Oh. Is that a question? Yeah, I think it would be helpful. If that's something that you're ready to do tonight, great. If that's something that you can do virtually offline, if everybody has more discussion or anything like that, great. But yeah, I think ultimately it'd be nice to have endorsement of the plan from this committee, and even if there's some sort of document, I put a placeholder for it in the plan, so that way we can have formal council approval, but also show that the committee also endorses the plan. That would be ideal.
Well, for us to endorse it, we have to have 6. We have to have half plus one, unless I'm wrong. Have to have a majority. We don't have a 5 here, so we need 6 people to be able to pass it on.
That's correct.
Because we have 10 on our committee, I'm correct?
Right.
10. So we need 6 people here, 6 to vote to pass it on. I think the 5 of us are fine with passing it on, but we have to have 6 to be able to do that.
No. Yeah, I'm assuming you probably need a quorum of some sort, which will probably be like, what, 6 out of 10 or so, to do any like kind of action or endorsement. Yeah, I don't know what how your practices are, but I know a lot of committees will also do something like via email if they have enough people responding to the email to vote tonight or to vote on things or what have you. So I kind of leave that for Walton. You do your processes.
Okay, I do have another question. So I do have, okay. So, and you'll probably hear this again, Austin, at some later point, but does the planning and the recommendations related to Abernathy and Hart change with the hub development in that area? Have you discussed that at all? Did that come up at all? part of the proposal has to do with funding and some park development at Abernathy. Was that part of your conversation at all? And Jay, you can write that in shortly.
She was on vacation.
I heard something about Abernathy.
There you go.
Does the planning rather include the hub? Yeah, so this particular plan, again, looking at the macro level of planning, what this plan does not do is take away any parkland for if the hub is put in, that maybe that takes away from green space. I don't know if it does or doesn't. Based on my conversations, I didn't really think it took away from the parkland. Like, in other words, the park was 10 acres, now all of a sudden it's 5 acres. But if there, for whatever reason, were going to be a reduction in parkland or something like that, then this plan, the numbers on that supply and the inventory, I would want to update that to include different types of numbers. But right now, the hub is not mentioned in this plan, but also that particular project does not influence the findings of this plan at all either, because this is still talking about capital improvement projects for like the boardwalk around Abernathy and shelter replacements and activating the water-based recreation. So that's still very much prominent. So that's my answer to that one. Is there's nothing in here that would be counter that, and it's also, to my knowledge, nothing about that would affect any of the supply in any of the charts.
Jay, I have a question. He mentioned the Nettles Park master plan once. I heard him mention it once. How does he feel that fits in with this master plan? Should we use that, or should that be modified? You know, how does that fit in?
Which plan were you referring to?
I'm typing it up.
Thank you. So I caught most of that. I think you're sitting closer to the audio. I caught most of that. I just didn't hear the particular Nettles. Thank you. I thought that's what you were going to say, but I wasn't really sure. Yeah, the Nettles Park Master Plan is still pretty spot on with this plan, because the most important and salient things of the Nettles Master Plan are, so we're already doing the feasibility study for the indoor center and the recreation. That's part of the master plan. And then also, that master plan called for facilities being removed and moved out of the floodplain. You will see that emphasized here, because that floodplain influences the playability of the fields. And so moving and getting more sport fields up at the out of the floodplain is still very much paramount. Now, there's a lot of other stuff in the Nettles Park Master Plan that goes beyond just the things that I've said. But this plan reinforces at least those ideas of getting the indoor recreation space. Pickleball courts are going in, and so that's part of it as well. And then moving things out of the floodplain. So that's still very much supporting the Nettles Park Master Plan.
One more, Austin. I know he was working with the architect for the community event center. Does that still fall in with the plan? I mean, is this falling very good with the plans that he set forward?
How's it working with them?
Yes.
Yeah, seems to be working really well with them. I've had meetings with them, and I've sat in on meetings with staff and about the center. And we actually have a meeting on Wednesday, tomorrow. We have a meeting tomorrow. Golly, where's this week gone by, right? And so the community event center fit within this plan, absolutely, because again, the number one amenity that people wanted, or program or amenity, was special events. And so that fits solely within this plan because social gathering spaces was one of the top needs of the community, both reinforced by this fiscally valid survey and then also from programmatic staff talking about the popularity of events and also just the stakeholder interviews and focus groups and talking to people about the popularity of those events. And even I would talk to some of the Clemson University folks, and they were even pointing it out at what is the city offering for our students as well. They're very cognizant of the fact that the city is also offering, you know, activities and quality of life things and social gathering opportunities for the students. And so I think that community event center is still very much a push for as a result of this plan, because you won't see anything really in this plan that goes counter the community event center.
So it's plus.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I could put my poor ear and I couldn't understand every word it said, but I got most of it.
Okay.
That's good. That's good for me.
Anything else from y'all? Any more questions?
Well, we want to thanks Austin for all the work. We have a lot to digest, and we'll be getting more. You know, the committee will obviously go through it some more, but you know, without a quorum, we can't technically endorse it.
Right.
But even if we had a quorum, it's a working meeting. Like, we didn't call to order, we don't have minutes. There's no public comment. I think it's, even if we had a quorum, I think we wouldn't be able to.
We have to have a regular meeting to have
I
it.
think so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Have one full council. We can do an email. I'll check on that and see.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, whether we could do it by, you know, email type thing or not, but if we want it endorsed before the council meeting, we'd have to call a special meeting for that.
Can we get 6 people here?
Huh?
Can we get 6 here?
I'm hoping that if we call a special meeting, we can.
That's no guarantee.
We did that once, and really, it was like a 10-minute meeting, and we were gone. So we did that. Were you here for that one?
I don't think so.
We had it in the courtroom over there.
Yeah.
Had it in the courtroom.
All right. Thank you, Austin.
Oh, thank you for my name. I think I heard a thank you. Yeah, thank you everybody for your time. Sorry about the challenge of me trying to hear. I'm sorry about that. But thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the time. And again, any feedback in the written word as well, feel free to funnel that through Jay and get that to me, and I'll be more than happy to address it.
All right, sir.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.